Hi everyone, welcome to Pankaya. My name is Sandra and we are really happy to be able to spend some time with Avanti from the Isha Yoga Foundation. And she's going to be telling us a bit about her journey into yoga and also how yoga can help us lead happy lives. Hi Avanti, welcome. Thanks very much for being here. So just to tell the public, can you tell us a little bit about how your journey started? How did you get into yoga?
Thanks, Sandra, first for the introduction. Pleasure to be here. And to say how I started, interestingly, I was introduced to yoga by my parents as a child. So I did my first program when I was 10. I didn't understand anything of what I was doing then, but somehow it kind of sowed a seed where I knew that this has something that's much more valuable to life. So that's where my journey started in a nutshell.
Okay, and did you know at that point that you wanted to become a yoga teacher, or is that something that kind of came up further down the line?
I never intended to be a yoga teacher, not at all. And interestingly, like in 2015, I happened to do a 21-day Hatha Yoga program at the Isha Center in India. And just within 3 weeks, I noticed such a huge shift, not only in my body, but in my mind, the clarity it was bringing me, the balance that I never had earlier. I could just see such a huge change that I said, I need to take this another step. I need to make this deeper. And that led me to the teacher training program.
So did you want to extend this to like family members and friends, or were you just so involved and immersed that you're like, I need to dive deeper into the yoga?
Because I noticed such a big change that I said, I first need to understand it. I need to feel the depth of what it is, because it was beautiful. I've never felt more blissful by just, holding a few postures sometimes. It's even not about the acrobatics, but the change it brings in. That was phenomenal. So I think I first let it sink in within myself. And then gradually, once I got trained, then of course I have trained some of my friends and family as well. So yeah.
Right. Do you think this is why yoga has become so popular? Well, not just yoga, but yoga and meditation has become so popular over the years.
Absolutely. In fact, Sadhguru says that there's been nothing that has stayed this long like yoga has. For the last 15,000 years, it's still remained a tool of well being, despite no one actually being a certain enforcement or a power to say this is what you need to do. It's just stayed here because of its efficacy. Another point that he also mentions is that with the way we lead our lives today, old or young, everyone is so stressful or stressed out that they're looking to find means to handle that inner turmoil. So whether it's by going to a disc or going for a drive or hiking, they still don't find the right solutions. And then it's but natural for people to find yoga in this.
Because I've done yoga in the past, so I've done a couple of different yogas. I've done Hatha, Iyengar, and Kundalini yoga, and I go to the yoga sessions, and I know that I come out, and I'm like, this is amazing. I need to go. I need to go back. I need to keep doing it. And with this whole COVID situation, it's kind of like taken us away from that routine, or at least it's taken me away from that routine. And I've kind of got to the point where I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, maybe not today, I'll do it tomorrow. And this has been happening continuously now for the last couple of months. What would you say to someone if they're struggling to get their practice into gear and really get that routine, that morning routine, or just daily practicing?
Okay, so I can give you an example that Sadhguru has mentioned earlier. It's like brushing our teeth. Now, when we were little, somebody at home, parents, somebody made sure for 6 months, 1 year, they handheld us to make sure that we brushed our teeth every day. Ever since then, we've been brushing. Now, even with the practices, all we need to do is that you need to keep up with it for a significant, like for a certain amount of time. Once you know the significance of the practice, nobody has to tell you to do it. You'll automatically do it. It's like brushing. If somebody comes and tells us today, don't brush, you're not going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. You know the difference it makes to us. So it's the same with the practice. Once you know what it does to you, I don't think anybody has to tell us to do it anymore.
So getting that routine in. Is there a specific time do you think that yoga is most beneficial for us? Or if you're going to start a routine, what would you say is the easiest way to incorporate it?
Personally, I prefer doing it the first thing in the morning because I feel it sets my day right. I've got the right balance, my body's feeling worked out, mind, emotions, everything is in place. Generally, but in terms of yoga, right now, because we're in a temperate climate, we're not very, it's not that you have to do it in the early hours or the later hours of the day. But in summer, especially like say you're in Spain, if it gets very hot, then definitely you don't do it when the sun is right up. Early in the morning before 8:30 or after 5 in the evening when it's a little more settled. But personally, I would say it's the best way to start your day.
Right, yeah. So first thing in the morning, kind of like brushing your teeth, just go and set up your mat and then don't even think about it. Because I feel like the thinking is what stops me from doing it. So if I bring in something else in the morning, I may then get distracted or then I get hungry and then it kind of, yeah, extends
Yeah.
itself to the evening and then we're possibly too tired. Um, okay, so we do know that there are health benefits of yoga. What about the emotional side of things? How can yoga help us? Or you particularly do hatha yoga, is that correct, Isha? Yeah. So how can that help us?
So when we talk about, say, Isha Hatha Yoga, we're talking about creating a certain right kind of inner situation. Now, this can be understood in many different ways. Let me just give you an example. So, say you lost your peace today.
Yeah.
Now, if you lose your peace today, what will you do? When you go home, whoever is at home, husband, wife, children, whoever, you may yell at them. Now, if it continues, you wake up in the morning tomorrow and you pick a fight with your neighbor. If it continues further, you may go to work and yell at your boss. Now, when you yelled at your husband or wife or whoever was at home, people felt that was normal. But the moment you yelled at your boss, they said, no, you need some medical help. Now they decide they need to call a doctor. So they bring the doctor in. He tries to talk you out of it, but you won't budge like that. So what's the next thing? He pops some pills into you. Now, what is a pill? It's a little bit of chemicals. The moment this little bit of chemicals entered us, suddenly you become very peaceful. Maybe not forever, for a short duration, but you do become peaceful. Now, that's why most people are popping pills because it's working. Maybe in a limited way, but it is still working. So, what you call as peace is a certain kind of chemistry within us. What you call as joy is another kind of chemistry within us. Anger, another kind of chemistry. Ecstasy, another kind of chemistry. Fear, jealousy, anxiety, any of it is another kind of chemistry. So, every human experience has a chemical basis to it. So, when we talk about Hatha Yoga, we're trying to create a certain kind of chemistry within ourselves. So you use a certain technology to create the right kind of chemistry where being joyful or peaceful is just natural to us. It's not something that we pursue. It's something that we naturally are. So this is how yoga can work.
Right, so it's the pill without taking the pill. That's really awesome. Yeah, because I think a lot of people have moved to try and do things more holistically, which is a great way of approaching our life. It's we can't find a quick solution for everything, and if we do try and use that, there's obviously going to be complications and issues that arise later with secondary health effects or whatever it is. But so yeah, I just love the way you've explained it. So it's like a way of creating a chemical balance within our bodies through these postures. Because a lot of the time there is an emphasis that yoga is about having a really nice body and like it's about the physical, but it's a lot more than that. It's the chemical balance to also connect us to that inner feeling, which you were saying is part of a chemical reaction. So I love that the way you've explained it. I think it's one of the best explanations I've heard. Um, in terms of other benefits, or people that have maybe injuries and stuff, can they still do Isha Hatha yoga? Is that
No, go ahead. Sorry.
is that something that they can still incorporate in their lives, even if they can't maybe necessarily do all the postures, or they can start off doing some postures and then moving on to others? What would you say to people that maybe have some health issues in terms of their body and mobility? How could they incorporate that into their lives?
So it's definitely open to all. And depending on each person's situation, health condition, we will recommend what's appropriate for them. And I think the first thing to remember with yoga is that flexibility is a byproduct. It's not a prerequisite of the practice. And not all yoga is twisting and turning. So as Sadhguru always jokingly says, when people say yoga, they think it means standing on your head, and normal means standing on your feet. But that's not the case. It's not about doing a certain practice or something like that. It's just a certain way of being. Yes, using the body in one way is one aspect of yoga that can be done. But definitely for those with injuries or they've had a certain background, once we know what it is, on a subjective basis, we can recommend what works. Because a lot of times, just using the body in a very sophisticated way like yoga does, it can also heal people out of a lot of situations. So it depends on the individual circumstance.
Yeah, because so a lot of health issues are related to stress, and it's what you were saying that we come home, we've had a bad day, we come home, we argue with our spouse or our family members, and we think it's completely normal because this is what we end up doing, and we end up bringing that baggage from the day or just those negative thoughts that we've had throughout the day. Come home, they explode at home, so we kind of get like, in a way, it's a little, it feels like a little release, but it's actually quite negative because you've been holding or harboring these negative emotions the whole day. You haven't expressed them or let them out. So then you pay those with your family. And then, like you said, then another thing piles on to another. So that's creating chronic, in a way, chronic stress and getting us used to living in a stressful state. So by doing yoga, we can then connect with those. Actually, there is something I wanted to ask you as well. One of the things, and I don't know if this happens to other people, is there are certain postures that kind of bring out some certain emotions, right? So we know that they're connected to balance things, but what about the postures that make you feel angry or maybe bring up those strong emotions which we've got locked in? What would you say to someone that says, oh, I've done a back bend and that back bend just brings out the anger, brings out the rage that I feel inside? Should we still do those postures?
I would say that whatever you experience when you're doing the practice, it's okay. It's only a passing moment. If it brings out something, it's fine. It's not going to stay there forever. The impact is consistency. The same back bend or the same practice that you started with, how you experienced it on the first day, and doing it every day over a period of time, it'll evolve into something completely different. So I wouldn't pin it too much on one experience. Just follow it as instructions were given. What needs to evolve will naturally evolve. So I wouldn't focus too much on it. It'll pass.
Right. So it is part of the process, maybe emotions coming up, and it's never going to be the same. Each asana will trigger something different or something different on a different day as well.
It could do that. It depends on what you're practicing. But what's important is you'll notice that the practice evolves you. The body becomes more stable, the mind, emotions, the energy system becomes so stable that it brings a certain stability and balance. And that's something that you will notice with regular practice.
Right, yeah. Do you feel that the lack of stability that most people feel is rooted in us being maybe outwardly and not spending this time to meditate and do yoga? Do you think that there is a direct link between the two?
I think the link would be with the world we live in and the education systems we have. We have so much focus on the outside, how to make things work on the outside, that we've never been taught from childhood how to make things work on the inside, because that's where we actually experience everything, whether we're happy, unhappy, whatever, we experience it here. Right. So I think, yes, not having the tools for well-being is what impacts us in how we experience the world, whether it's stressful or happy.
Yeah, completely agreed. I couldn't agree more. It's a shame because we do spend a lot of amount in school, just in our education system. And it's such a shame that we don't get to incorporate meditation or even just being mindful and acknowledging what's going on within us. Sometimes you can see something and a tension brewing between people. Even at work, I don't know, there's a tension brewing. You can see something's happening, but no one's really saying anything. And then a couple of days later, or even within the hour, it's exploded. But it wasn't the thing that made the explosion or the argument arise, which was the trigger. It was that inner feeling of that created trigger in the end. So not being able to express ourselves. Do you think that it's also to do with our inability to speak our truth, that we end up in these situations? Do you think that has a issue there as well?
I wouldn't know if I'm in the right place to comment about this, to be honest. But I think before we express ourselves on the outside, setting a firm foundation on the inside is the basis. Because once we have then you have a little distance between the mind and the body and us, so that you're not experiencing everything in a stressful and painful way. So I think when the foundation is in place, then the right kind of expression will also happen as needed. But I probably am not in the right place to comment further on this.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks for that. And also in terms of challenges, both as a teacher and maybe as a student as well, because you were a student first, what was the biggest challenge for you, or just generally in terms of doing yoga? Or was it postures? Was it so in your case, what was the biggest challenge?
I think the only challenge is that we have to do it. That is the only challenge,
Okay.
and it has to be done every day. So it's consistency.
Yes.
I think that is the key, but it's got its beauty once you start experiencing what it can give. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I'm trying to think of because I know that you travel a lot as well, teaching your courses. Can you tell us a bit about what you do, and why do you travel so much, and why do you enjoy teaching yoga? Can you share that with us?
To be honest, in terms of teaching, it's like an offering, and to keep somebody's well-being above my own, or offering somebody a tool of well-being where they can experience life in a more fulfilled and joyful way, is something I can't express in terms of how fulfilled I feel and grateful I feel to have an opportunity to do this. In terms of traveling, it was never a conscious thought process. It just happened very organically that I got opportunities to teach in those many places, but that's all it's been, to be honest. So
right, okay, because you've been in India, Europe, and you've been delivering these courses on behalf of Isha Foundation. So yeah, if someone's interested and they want to know more about the courses you do, I know you don't just do yoga. There's also meditation as well. There's other things that you offer. Could you tell us a bit about that for those that may be interested in finding out more?
yes, so Hatha Yoga is one aspect of what we do, but our flagship offering is called as Inner Engineering Online.
Yeah.
So here, I think because of the pandemic, everything now has shifted online. So it's a unique privilege that people who were never able to even come physically can do the program. So I'll just tell you a little more about it. So Inner Engineering Online is a series of 7 sessions of 90 minutes each, where Sadhguru expounds how this life is made, how this body works, how this mind works, why the emotions work the way they do, why do we experience life in a certain way. So he gets into the mechanics of how life works. And this gives us tools of how to handle our situations on the outside. So after you do this, you then get an opportunity now to even go through a completion program where you learn a 21-minute meditation. It's a breathing technique where being joyful or happy or peaceful is just natural after that, because you know how to control the very way life works within us. So this is a little bit about Inner Engineering Online. And we do a combination of, as I said, Hatha Yoga and this. So in terms of finding more about us, you can go to isha.sadhguru.org, where all of our practices are there. And you can also find a local teacher near you to learn something. If you want to know more about inner engineering, then it is innerengineering.com. And again, you'll be guided. There's plenty of information. There's a little video introducing you to the practice. What does the session entail? What can happen? Benefits, studies done on this. So all of that.
Yeah, that's a really great thing what you mentioned as well. So part of this this offering involves the science behind it. I know that this has been an issue that I've faced a lot, where you talk about the benefits of meditation and people just try and maybe deny it or say that they don't really work, but the science is there. Meditation has extremely amazing benefits, and as do the yoga sessions that you guys offer, and yoga in general. So it's great that if someone is interested in doing this yoga with the Isha Foundation, that they can also get access to this and know that it is supported by science, and then also trust their inner feeling, right? Because once they go on the course, or once they sign up to a yoga session, they can instantly feel this difference. So just by doing that, so it's also validating our truths and knowing that that feeling means something. So I think that that's everything. Do you also do yoga teacher trainings as well? Are you running them at the moment with the current situation with the pandemic, or is it something that's not being done?
So the teacher training program is run by the foundation only in our India center. It's a 6-month residential program where teachers from all over the globe go there. They immerse themselves in going through the training. It's been on last year and as well as this year. Of course, I think the numbers were restricted because of travel, but this year things opened up a little more. So they usually train from between July to December. So that's generally how the training goes.
Great. So at least people can go and do that. So if you find that you want to take your yoga to the next level and you want to go more in depth, that could be a good opportunity that people could have in India. And which city is it in?
The yoga center is, it's based in Coimbatore. So this is in South India, where in the state of Tamil Nadu is one of the southernmost states.
Yeah.
In a city called Coimbatore. Yeah, it's a little out of the city though.
Yeah, I know that because I've been to Tiruvannamalai. Have you heard of that?
Tiruvannamalai, yes.
Yeah, that's where I was, Bangalore and Chennai. So I believe it's further down, right?
That's correct. It's further south from there.
Yeah, I thought so. No, that's great. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today and let us know a bit about Isha Yoga and actually how yoga can actually just benefit us. On the live session we'll be doing, you're actually going to be guiding us on a physical yoga session, and you're going to be including meditation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And your yoga session is all about getting happiness across and bringing that sense of like happiness within us through the session. Is there anything else that people should get ready? Blankets, or they definitely need a yoga mat. Will they need anything else?
No, just be there, experience it. It's very simple, no prerequisite for anybody. If they've done yoga for many years, most welcome. If they haven't ever, also most welcome. So no prerequisites. Maybe not on an entirely full stomach so that you don't feel drowsy, but otherwise, yes.
Okay, perfect. And they don't need to be stretchy or able to get into complicated positions, like you said.
No.
We're not going to be doing any handstands, right?
Not
So it would just be more of a relaxed session for everyone. And it's a good introduction into the event as well. So it's helping you guys feel good and then getting you ready for the full day ahead. All right, well, thanks very much, Avanti. We look forward to hearing your presentation live at the next event.
Thank you. Pleasure. Looking forward to the event as well. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.